In the silent vastness of space, where stars burned like scattered diamonds on black velvet, humanity made a discovery that would shake the foundations of everything they thought they knew. It began with a faint signal, almost a whisper against the noise of the cosmos. Deep in the outskirts of the Andromeda sector, a routine survey by the United Earth Space Agency detected something extraordinary. At first, it appeared as a faint glimmer, easily dismissed as a reflection of distant starlight or a glitch in the sensors. But the readings refused to lie. The object was enormous, unimaginably large, so large that the idea of it being a natural celestial body seemed impossible. The first images returned to Earth caused chaos in research centers, universities, and government offices alike. On every monitor, the same sight appeared, a structure the size of a small planet, floating silently in the dark between stars. Its surface was uneven, covered with geometric shapes and patterns that defied natural explanation. There were vast flat plains, immense towers, and structures that curved in impossible angles. No asteroid, no moon, no known planet had ever looked like this. It was artificial, and its scale dwarfed anything humanity had ever dreamed of building. Dr. Elena Mirov, a leading astrophysicist at the European Space Observatory, was one of the first to study the readings. Her hands shook as she adjusted the images on her screen, trying to comprehend the scale. This cannot be real," she whispered, though the room was crowded with colleagues. Every eye was glued to the monitor. It's bigger than Earth. It's a starship. A ship this size, it's a world itself." Her words spread through the scientific community like wildfire. Teams of astrophysicists, engineers, and explorers gathered to examine every piece of data. The discovery was confirmed independently by 3 other major observatories. Each one returned the same conclusion: humanity had found something beyond comprehension. A starship, the size of a planet, drifting in space. Governments around the world convened emergency meetings. Satellite networks were redirected, telescopes reoriented, and probes prepared for immediate launch. Humanity's attention turned toward this colossal mystery. For the first time, the question of humanity's place in the galaxy seemed more urgent than ever. As the news leaked, reactions varied. Across the globe, people stared at their screens in disbelief. On social media, conspiracy theories and wild speculations flourished. Some said it was an alien warship, sent to watch or conquer. Others claimed it was abandoned, left behind by a long-lost civilization. Every theory seemed equally possible and equally terrifying. The most pressing question remained: was the ship abandoned, or was there someone still inside? As night fell over Earth, satellites captured more detailed images. The ship's surface was unlike anything ever imagined. Massive structures rose like towers, connected by bridges and lines of glowing lights that pulsed intermittently. There were patterns that hinted at intelligence, deliberate design, a purpose beyond human understanding. The object was not only enormous, it radiated an aura of precision and power. Humanity had discovered not just a machine, but a world built by minds far beyond their own. Dr. Mirov and her team were the first to propose sending a probe. "We need to understand what it is," she said. "If there's anyone, or anything, inside, we must know what we're dealing with before we make contact. It's delicate and dangerous." Preparations began immediately. Engineers worked around the clock, designing an unmanned probe capable of withstanding unknown energies, strange gravity anomalies, and potentially hostile conditions. The probe would be humanity's eyes and ears inside the colossal structure. The plan was to send it in stages, first to orbit, then to approach, and finally to enter the ship if possible. Meanwhile, the galaxy itself seemed to be watching. Communications from distant civilizations, once faint and rare, became active. Alien emissaries sent cryptic signals toward Earth, their tones unreadable, their intentions unclear. Humanity had always thought of itself as alone, a fragile species adrift in a vast universe. Now, suddenly, other eyes turned toward them, curious, wary, perhaps fearful. The day the probe launched was tense. The control room was silent except for the steady hum of machinery and the low murmur of anxious scientists. Cameras captured every angle as the probe separated from its shuttle, slowly drifting toward the massive starship. Every second seemed to stretch into eternity. Finally, the probe sensors began to return images, and the room erupted in gasps. The first view was breathtaking. The ship was even larger than previously imagined. From the probe's perspective, the towers and ridges stretched endlessly into the distance. Shadows moved across the surface, subtle but undeniable. Something was alive, or at least something was moving. The probe's cameras could not capture the full scale, no sensor could. Humanity had found a ship that was effectively a small planet, and now it was slowly revealing its secrets. Dr. Miroff leaned forward, her eyes wide. "Do you see that?" she asked. Every person in the control room leaned in. In the distance, along one of the massive ridges, a shadow shifted. It was unlike any natural formation. It moved with purpose. Speculation ran rampant. Could it be an alien crew? Or perhaps an automated system? Or something entirely different? No one knew. No one could even guess. And that uncertainty, that vast unknown, sent a thrill and a chill down everyone's spine. The probe moved closer, transmitting more data. The surface of the ship was intricate, covered in metallic plates that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange symbols and structures, massive and delicate at the same time, formed patterns across the surface. It was clearly designed, and it was ancient. No records in human history, or even in the collective knowledge of the galaxy, hinted at anything this advanced. As the probe reached the outer surface, sensors picked up faint energy readings. There was power here, not dead or fading, but alive. The starship was not abandoned in the traditional sense. Something inside continued to function, though whether it was sentient or automatic remained unknown. News of the discovery reached the public. The world paused. Media outlets struggled to keep up with the developments. Crowds gathered in city squares, looking up at the night sky, imagining the colossal ship drifting silently through space. Memes, videos, debates, all flooded the internet. Humanity had found something beyond the solar system, beyond imagination, and suddenly, everyone felt both tiny and important at the same time. While the public speculated, the real work continued. Teams of scientists and engineers analyzed every image, every reading, every anomaly. They mapped the starship's size, estimated its mass, and tried to understand the energy signatures it emitted. It was a puzzle of impossible complexity. The technology used to build it was not just advanced, it was far beyond human comprehension. And yet, despite the fear and uncertainty, a sense of wonder dominated. Humanity was no longer simply observers of the universe. For the first time, they were explorers confronting a mystery that could change everything. And in that moment, a quiet thought echoed in every mind. If humans had found this, what else was out there, waiting to be discovered? The probe transmitted new images, now approaching one of the starship's towering structures. It appeared to be an entry point, though whether it was meant for entry or simply part of the ship's function was unclear. The shadows moved again, faster this time, almost aware of the probe's presence. A ripple of tension passed through the control room. Something was watching. "Keep a steady course," Dr. Miroff instructed. "Do not provoke it. We do not know what we are dealing with." Every moment stretched. The probe's cameras scanned the structure, revealing corridors that twisted in ways that seemed impossible. Staircases led to nowhere. Platforms extended over vast chasms, and energy conduits hummed with unknown power. The ship was a labyrinth, alive in its complexity, designed with a purpose humanity could not yet understand. As the probe continued, a faint signal appeared, faint and almost imperceptible. It was a pulse, regular and deliberate, coming from deep within the starship. A heartbeat of technology, or life, or both. Humanity had found a message, though it had not yet been decoded. And whatever it was old, ancient beyond human reckoning, yet still active, still waiting. The control room fell silent. No one moved. All eyes were fixed on the monitors. For the first time, the immensity of the discovery hit them fully. They were not just looking at a ship, they were looking at history, at the legacy of a civilization that might have vanished millions of years ago, leaving only this colossal vessel drifting in the void. And in that silence, the first true fear took hold. What if the ship was not abandoned? What if something, or someone, was still inside, watching, waiting, perhaps even preparing to respond? The probe sent back one last image before contact was temporarily lost. It showed a vast chamber, enormous and empty, or so it seemed. Shadows stretched across the floor, and in the distance, a glimmer of movement hinted at something alive. The screen went dark for a brief moment, leaving humanity staring at emptiness, waiting for the unknown. Dr. Miroff exhaled slowly. "We have found something incredible," she said quietly. "And now, we must find out what it wants, and whether it will let us discover it." Humanity had stepped into the unknown. A planet-sized starship floated silently in space, massive, mysterious, alive in ways no one yet understood. The galaxy was watching, and so was humanity. And for the first time in history, the question that had haunted every explorer, every scientist, and every dreamer became real. What wonders, and what dangers, lurk inside a ship the size of a world? The answer would come in time. But for now, humanity could only stare, awestruck, terrified, and utterly unprepared for the journey ahead. Humanity had never felt so small, yet so alive. The planet-sized starship floated silently in the blackness, its enormity overwhelming every instrument, every mind, every expectation. From Earth, it had looked impossibly distant, a tiny glimmer against the endless night. Now, as the first unmanned probe crept closer, reality sank in. This was no longer a distant mystery. This was something real, something that could change everything humanity thought about the universe and their place within it. The control room was tense, filled with the low hum of machines and the nervous energy of every scientist present. Dr. Elena Miroff sat at the center, her hands clasped tightly together, knuckles white, staring at the monitors that showed the probe's journey. Each second felt like an eternity as the probe approached the enormous hull of the starship. The closer it got, the more details became visible, and the more human imagination struggled to grasp what it was seeing. Vast ridges stretched into infinity, shadows moving across surfaces that no human mind could easily measure. Patterns of construction defied logic, twisting in angles that were beautiful, terrifying, and utterly alien. "Steady," Dr. Miroff whispered, her voice trembling. "Keep a steady course. Every movement matters." The probe crossed a threshold, entering the gravitational field surrounding the starship. Even from this distance, the sensors detected shifts in energy. Not chaotic, but deliberate. The starship seemed to respond to the probe's approach. A shiver ran through the room. No one could say for certain, but it felt alive, as if the massive vessel itself was aware of their presence. Images returned from the probe, revealing corridors larger than entire cities on Earth. Towers stretched above, their tops disappearing into clouds of unknown energy. Bridges connected structures that seemed impossible to connect. Every step into the starship was a step into a world beyond comprehension. The crew watching the feeds felt awe, fear, and a growing sense of responsibility. This discovery was no longer just about science, it was about survival, about humanity's ability to face the unknown with courage. As the probe moved along the surface, the first emotional wave hit. Deep chambers appeared, vast halls lined with structures that had once been used for purposes no human could yet imagine. There were traces of a civilization that had existed millions of years ago, now long gone, yet leaving behind a mark so powerful that humans could feel its presence. The probe's cameras captured shadows moving across the floor, not quite human, not quite machine, hinting at a life form that still existed, or at least a mechanism left behind to guard or observe. The scientists stared at the images, hearts pounding, caught between awe and fear. Back on Earth, people watched the live feeds. Families gathered around screens, children pressed their faces to the glass of observatories, and older generations sat in stunned silence. Humanity had always looked to the stars with wonder, but now the stars were no longer distant. The unknown had a shape, a size, a presence. And that presence seemed to be watching back. Dr. Miroff's team detected faint energy readings. Pulses moved through the starship, subtle but constant, like a heartbeat. "It's alive," she said softly, almost to herself. "Not like us, but alive." Emotions ran high. Scientists and engineers realized that the ship, even if unmanned, was not dead. It had a consciousness, an intelligence, a purpose that humans could not yet comprehend. And in that realization came the first stirrings of fear. Humanity was facing something that could outthink them, outlast them, and judge them in ways they could not yet understand. The probe continued its approach, gliding closer to an opening that appeared to be an entryway, a gap between massive structures. The chamber beyond stretched into darkness. Light from the probe illuminated only a fraction of the interior, revealing platforms, staircases, and corridors that twisted in impossible angles. Each new image sparked awe and unease. Humanity had entered a world that seemed alive, and yet it remained utterly silent. Then, movement. Shadows shifted in the distance, subtle but undeniable. The probe detected it first, an energy spike, almost like a pulse of awareness. Everyone watching froze. Could it be life? Or was it a defense mechanism of the ship itself? The uncertainty cut deeper than fear of any known enemy. The unknown had a weight, and humanity was learning to carry it. As the probe's cameras moved deeper, faint glimmers of light appeared along the walls. They pulsed rhythmically, not random, not chaotic, but deliberate. Dr. Miroff's voice was barely audible over the hum of the machines. "It's communicating," she said, a mixture of fear and excitement in her tone. "It's trying to tell us something, even if we can't understand yet." The emotional intensity in the control room reached a peak. Years of preparation, decades of curiosity, all came down to this moment. Every scientist, engineer, and observer felt the weight of history pressing down. Humanity had crossed a threshold, not just into space, but into the unknown. The fear of failure, of misjudgment, of provoking the starship, mingled with awe and hope. If humans could navigate this, they might finally understand their place in a galaxy full of mysteries. The probe sensors detected subtle vibrations within the ship. They were faint, almost imperceptible, but consistent. Some called it a heartbeat, others called it energy fluctuations. Whatever it was, it made the hair on the back of every neck stand up. Humanity had found not only a ship, but a world with its own life, its own rules, and its own consciousness. And now the first step had been taken toward understanding it. Despite the wonder, tension built. The probe was small, fragile, and vulnerable. Humanity had sent it forward as a representative, a scout, and it moved into the unknown with no certainty of survival. Every image transmitted back was a reminder of human vulnerability. And yet, watching the probe, humanity felt something else, a deep connection to exploration, to discovery, to the courage that had driven them from their first steps on Earth to the first ships leaving the planet. They were explorers, and the universe was no longer a backdrop, it was alive. Hours passed. The probe drifted further into the massive hull, and for the first time, something seemed to react. Lights along the walls pulsed in a sequence, almost like a greeting, almost like recognition. Dr. Miroff and her team stared at the feed. "It knows we are here," she whispered. "It sees us." Tears welled in her eyes. Humanity had found intelligence beyond imagination, and now they faced the choice of how to interact, with caution, with curiosity, and with the knowledge that every decision mattered. And then, just as suddenly, the lights dimmed. Shadows stretched across the chambers, and the probe's feed began to flicker. A low hum echoed through its sensors, faint but unmistakable. Something moved in the distance, large, deliberate, and purposeful. The control room fell silent. No one spoke. Every heartbeat was loud in the quiet room. The probe had not just found a starship, it had entered a world that was watching, that was alive, and that might have intentions entirely beyond human understanding. Dr. Miroff took a deep breath. "We have taken the first step," she said softly, almost to herself. "And whatever comes next, we face it together." The probe continued, pushing deeper into the heart of the starship. Humanity watched, hearts pounding, minds racing, emotions tangled between awe and fear. For the first time, the universe felt close, personal, and alive. The starship was not just a discovery, it was a mirror, reflecting humanity's courage, curiosity, and vulnerability. It was a reminder of how small they were, and yet how far they had come. The journey had begun. Humanity had approached the unknown and survived the first moment of truth. And in the darkness of the alien vessel, hidden from sight, something watched. Something ancient, powerful, and patient. It had been waiting. And now, finally, humanity had arrived. The first approach was over, but the story was only beginning. Emotions ran high, fear and wonder mingled, and every mind in the control room understood one simple truth. Whatever lay inside that colossal starship could change everything. The galaxy was no longer silent, and humanity was no longer just a small species on a small planet. They were explorers in the truest sense, stepping into a story that had been written long before they existed, and one that was only just beginning to unfold. News of the probe's first approach to the planet-sized starship spread faster than any human could have imagined. Earth had discovered a world beyond comprehension, and the galaxy was paying attention. Signals flickered across vast distances, some reaching out cautiously, others crackling with curiosity or warning. Humanity's discovery, meant to be a moment of quiet scientific triumph, had become a message broadcast across the stars. Earth had found something incredible and perhaps dangerous. In every corner of the planet, emotions ran high. Scientists stared at their monitors, government officials whispered in tense corridors, and ordinary citizens looked up at the night sky with wonder and fear. Humanity had always looked up at the stars and dreamed. Now, the stars were looking back, and humanity could feel their gaze. Every nation, every organization, felt both pride and unease. They were pioneers, and yet they had awakened something that reached far beyond their understanding. Alien civilizations had been silent observers of the cosmos for millennia, but the signal of discovery was unmistakable. The first to respond were the cautious ones, sending messages in coded bursts that took days to reach Earth. Their words were careful, diplomatic, but unmistakably curious. They asked questions. Who were humans? What had they found? Were they alone in discovering the starship, or were others already involved? At the same time, more aggressive civilizations transmitted warnings. Some were subtle, embedded in signals that appeared as interference at first, but careful analysis revealed intent. Others were blunt, threatening, and filled with an unspoken weight of power. Humanity, for all its technological advancement, was suddenly acutely aware of its fragility. The galaxy had noticed them, and not all eyes were friendly. Dr. Elena Miroff and her team worked tirelessly to decode and understand these alien communications. Each message carried emotion, purpose, and a strange unfamiliarity. Some conveyed admiration, others fear, and still others something that no human word could capture, ancient judgment. It was as if these civilizations had been waiting for humanity to take this step, and now, having taken it, humanity had announced itself to the galaxy. Despite the warnings and the intrigue, Earth continued its preparations. The probe was still inside the starship, moving carefully, reporting every detail. Humans watched the live feed in awe. The ship's corridors stretched endlessly, towers loomed above, and shadows moved in ways that seemed alive. The energy readings pulsed gently, almost like breathing. Humanity had entered a world that was both mechanical and living, a fusion of intelligence and purpose that defied explanation. Emotion ran high among the scientists. Some felt fear, imagining the starship as a weapon or a trap. Others felt hope, imagining a message of friendship or knowledge waiting to be discovered. And some felt something deeper, a kind of reverence for the unknown. Humanity had always been explorers, but now they were explorers standing at the edge of something that could define the future of their species. As the probe continued its approach, another unexpected development occurred. A signal, faint and rhythmic, came from the starship itself. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but deliberate. Every scientist in the control room felt it, not just as data, but as a presence. The ship was aware. It was watching. It was responding. Emotion filled the room. Excitement, fear, awe, and something more primal, a sense of humility in the face of something greater than themselves. The galaxy, watching through its own networks and sensors, reacted as well. Reports arrived from neighboring civilizations noting the human approach. Some sent emissaries to observe quietly, while others began mobilizing fleets, uncertain whether humanity would be a threat or an ally. The political stakes were enormous. For the first time, humans were not just a species, they were a symbol. They represented ingenuity, courage, and now, to some, danger. Every move the probe made was being recorded, studied, and interpreted by beings who had existed far longer than humanity could imagine. Back on Earth, the emotional toll was profound. Families worried about the safety of the scientists and the probe. Leaders debated the risks and benefits of revealing every detail. And yet, in the hearts of millions, a spark of pride and wonder burned bright. Humanity had discovered not just a starship, but a future, a story that was larger than themselves, stretching into the unknown. Then came the first real shock. The probe sensors detected something moving within the starship, a shape, enormous, shifting deliberately, almost as if it were aware of the probe's presence. Dr. Miroff's voice shook as she reported it. It's alive. Or it thinks it is alive. Something is moving inside. A hush fell over the control room. Even the most seasoned scientists, who had spent decades studying the cosmos, felt the weight of this moment. Humanity was no longer merely observing the universe. They were part of it, and the universe had noticed. The alien civilizations, meanwhile, became more active. Signals intensified, some warning humans to stop, others encouraging caution. A few sent detailed schematics of starship technologies, perhaps as a gesture of goodwill or a test. Humanity had entered a delicate balance. The probe was inside the starship, humans were watching, and the galaxy itself had paused to observe. Every action mattered. Every word could alter the future. As the probe transmitted closer images of the corridors, shadows shifted again. There was a rhythm, a deliberate pacing, almost like a response. The ship was communicating, but in a language humans could not yet decipher. And yet, the emotional impact was undeniable. A sense of being watched, studied, and perhaps even judged settled over the control room. Humanity was not alone. They had stepped into a story that had begun long before their species existed, and the story was aware of them. Dr. Miroff's eyes filled with tears. She had spent her life searching for signs of life beyond Earth, dreaming of contact, hoping for understanding. And now, finally, the dream had come true, not in the gentle way she imagined, but in a way that was overwhelming, terrifying, and magnificent. The probe had not only found a starship, it had found a voice, a presence, and a history that humanity could barely comprehend. And then, without warning, the ship pulsed. The lights along the walls brightened, not in random flickers, but in a deliberate pattern. It was as if the starship had recognized the probe, had understood its purpose, and was responding. Excitement surged through the control room, mingled with fear. The galaxy watched, humanity watched, and for the first time, the starship itself seemed to take notice of the humans who had dared to approach. The pulse continued, a rhythmic heartbeat that resonated with the probe's sensors. Dr. Miroff whispered, "It's alive, it knows we are here." And somewhere, deep in the corridors of the ship, shadows moved faster, deliberately, with purpose. Something ancient, patient, and intelligent had taken notice. The galaxy's gaze had shifted, but so had the starships. Humanity's actions had rippled across space in ways no one could yet measure. Emotion, fear, awe, and hope intertwined. The galaxy reacted, some with curiosity, some with caution, others with alarm. Humanity felt the weight of history pressing down, yet the thrill of discovery lifted them higher. They had crossed a threshold, leaving behind the safety of speculation and entering the realm of reality. The probe moved carefully, sensors alive, transmitting every image, every pulse, every shadow. In that moment, every human watching, every scientist, every child, every leader felt it, a connection to the cosmos deeper than any data, beyond any formula. They were not alone. They were not insignificant. They had approached the unknown and had been noticed. And though the future was uncertain, filled with potential danger and immense challenge, humanity had taken its first true step into the larger galaxy. The first approach had ended, but the reaction had begun. Across light years of space, civilizations recalibrated their understanding of humans. Some admired their courage, some feared their potential, and some quietly plotted their next move. Humanity had awakened something ancient, something vast, and something aware. The galaxy had taken notice. Dr. Miroff, exhausted, leaned back in her chair. Tears ran down her cheeks, a mixture of pride, fear, and joy. Humanity had crossed a threshold. They had taken the first step into the unknown and, for the first time, understood the fragile, emotional, and profound beauty of discovery. And somewhere, deep inside the shadows of the starship, a presence waited, watching, learning, and perhaps preparing for the next move. The universe had spoken, the galaxy had reacted, and humanity had responded. The story was no longer about Earth alone, it was about a species stepping into a larger narrative, a story written across stars, shadows, and time itself. The human heart had felt the weight of the galaxy, and it had not faltered. It had only grown stronger, more determined, more aware of the wonder and danger that lay ahead. The probe continued its slow, deliberate journey deeper into the colossal starship. Every image transmitted back was a reminder, the galaxy was alive, the universe was watching, and humanity had found a place within it. Fear, hope, curiosity, and courage mingled into a single emotion, the thrill of being alive in a universe that had finally noticed them. Humanity had prepared for this moment for years, though no preparation could truly capture the weight of what they were about to do. The first probe had sent back images of corridors that stretched endlessly, shadows that moved deliberately, and energy readings that suggested intelligence beyond human comprehension. Now it was time for humans to step inside themselves. A team of the best astronauts, scientists, and engineers would board the Starship for the first time, their mission as dangerous as it was historic. Captain Arjun Patel led the crew. He had trained for decades, faced simulations that tested his endurance, courage, and decision-making under extreme stress. Yet nothing could have prepared him for the emotion that gripped him as the shuttle detached from its docking vessel and approached the Starship. Outside the window, the colossal structure stretched endlessly, massive towers disappearing into darkness. It was not just large, it was incomprehensible. Every instinct in his body told him that humanity was too small to face what lay ahead, yet every fiber of his being pushed him forward. They had to go. Everyone ready. Arjun's voice was steady, but even he could not hide the tremor in his chest. His crew nodded, faces tense, eyes wide. There was excitement, yes, but also fear. None of them had seen what awaited inside. None could imagine what they would encounter. And yet, the mission was clear: step inside, gather data, survive, and return. As the shuttle's engines flared, approaching the Starship's surface, the crew watched in silence. The hull was a labyrinth of towers, corridors, and strange glowing conduits. Shadows moved in patterns that no human mind could anticipate. The Starship was alive, they realized, aware of their presence. The realization sent shivers down their spines. They were not entering an abandoned vessel, they were stepping into the gaze of something that had existed for millennia and had likely observed countless civilizations before them. The docking was tense. Every instrument blinked warnings and readouts. Captain Patel's hands were steady on the controls, but inside, a storm of emotion churned. They were about to become the first humans to walk inside a world built by minds far beyond their own. The shuttle touched the docking platform with precision honed by countless simulations. Silence filled the cabin as the crew checked their systems one last time. "Let's make history," Patel said, voice low, almost reverent. The airlock opened, and the crew stepped inside. Immediately, they were struck by the scale. Corridors stretched endlessly, wider than football fields, lit by pulses of energy that flowed like rivers along the walls. The floors and ceilings curved impossibly, giving the impression that they were walking inside a living organism rather than a machine. Every step echoed in the silence, each sound magnified in the vast emptiness. The air smelled metallic, sterile, yet carried a faint hum, as though the Starship itself exhaled softly with every pulse of energy. Dr. Elena Mirov, who had joined the mission as chief scientist, was nearly breathless. She had imagined the moment for decades, but reality exceeded every dream. "It's beautiful," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Like, it's alive." She reached out to touch one of the glowing conduits. The energy pulsed beneath her fingers as if acknowledging her presence. The emotion of the moment hit her fully. Humanity was inside something extraordinary, something that had existed long before Earth had formed, and now they were part of it. But all quickly gave way to tension. The shadows moved. Not distant, not faint, but deliberate. Figures, massive and indistinct, shifted along the edges of their vision. Sensors picked up energy spikes that pulsed in irregular patterns, as though the Starship was testing them, observing them, judging them. Every instinct in the crew screamed caution, yet curiosity pressed them onward. Captain Patel signaled the team to spread out, exploring methodically. Every corridor revealed wonders that defied understanding. Massive chambers lined with structures that seemed ceremonial, floating platforms that moved without visible support, and inscriptions that glowed faintly, impossible to read but undeniably deliberate. Each discovery was breathtaking, but it carried weight. They were not merely observers. They were intruders in a world that had its own rules, its own consciousness, and its own intentions. Hours passed, and the crew pressed deeper. The air hummed with a strange rhythm, like a heartbeat that echoed through every corridor. Dr. Mirov recorded the readings, her voice soft in the comms, tinged with awe and fear. "It's like the ship is alive, like it knows we're here. Every pulse, every flicker of light, it's watching, and it's thinking." Patel felt it too, a sense of presence pressing against them from every direction. They were explorers, yes, but also fragile creatures standing inside a being that had likely seen the rise and fall of stars. The emotional weight of the realization struck him fully. Humanity was tiny, temporary, yet here they were, daring to step inside the heart of something eternal. And then the first direct interaction occurred. As they entered a vast chamber, a section of the floor shifted silently, forming a bridge that had not been there moments before. Lights pulsed along its edges, guiding them forward. The crew froze, unsure if this was a welcome or a test. Dr. Miroff whispered, "It's helping us. Or inviting us. Maybe both." Her voice trembled with emotion. The mixture of fear, wonder, and responsibility was overwhelming. Deeper they went, encountering chambers filled with incomprehensible technology. Massive machines hummed softly, glowing conduits pulsed with energy, and patterns of light danced along the walls in ways that seemed like communication, though no language could translate them. Every moment felt like stepping further into the mind of a civilization that had vanished eons ago, leaving behind a vessel that was not just a machine but a living testament to their ingenuity. The shadows continued to move. This time, closer. The crew caught glimpses of shapes that were immense, fluid, and deliberate. Not hostile, yet not friendly either. Something within the starship was aware of their every movement. Captain Patel's voice broke the silence. "Keep calm. Keep moving. Observe. Learn. Every step counts." Emotion ran high among the team. Dr. Miroff's hands shook as she recorded data. Engineer Lin Chen pressed herself against the wall, awestruck and terrified at the same time. They were explorers, yes, but also humans, small and fragile in the face of something far beyond comprehension. And yet, a deep pride coursed through them. They were here. They were witnessing history. They were humanity's first steps inside a world that had existed long before Earth had formed, and might exist long after humans were gone. Hours blended into each other as they explored further. The starship seemed to respond subtly, shifting lights, opening passages, even vibrating faintly as though breathing. Dr. Miroff's voice broke as she recorded her observations. "It's alive, it's conscious. It's judging us, testing us, watching us. And, somehow, it trusts us to step further inside." Captain Patel led the crew into the central chamber, a space so vast it defied imagination. Towers rose impossibly high, platforms floated silently, and a soft pulse of energy moved rhythmically through the walls and floor. They were standing inside the heart of a world alive with intelligence and history. The emotions of fear, awe, reverence, and wonder crashed over each crew member simultaneously. Humanity had never felt so small, yet so significant. And then, for the first time, a sound. Not mechanical, not random, but deliberate. A tone, low and resonant, vibrating through the hull, echoing in the corridors, touching the hearts of every human present. It was not a threat, but a message, a recognition of their presence, a greeting from something ancient and powerful. Tears welled in the eyes of Dr. Miroff, and Captain Patel felt a lump in his throat. Humanity had entered the unknown and had been acknowledged. Every step forward from that moment was filled with emotional gravity. They were explorers, historians, and witnesses. They were humans, small and fragile, yet daring to step into a legacy that had endured for eons. And deep within the starship, shadows moved, shapes shifted, and pulses of energy danced like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant that had finally awakened to the presence of life from a distant world. The first boarding had begun. Humanity was inside the colossal starship, and every heartbeat, every pulse of light, every subtle shift of shadow reminded them they were not alone, and they had stepped into a story far greater than themselves. Fear, wonder, pride, and responsibility intertwined as they pressed deeper, knowing that every choice mattered, every action was watched, and the next step could change the future of humanity forever. The crew moved cautiously through the endless corridors of the colossal starship. Every step echoed like a heartbeat in the vast emptiness, and every shadow made them pause. Captain Arjun Patel led, his eyes scanning the alien architecture, his mind racing with questions he could not yet answer. The scale of the ship was still incomprehensible. It was not a vessel, not a machine, not even a world. It was something greater, something alive, something aware of their presence in ways humanity could barely imagine. Dr. Elena Miroff walked beside him, recording every detail, every pulse of energy, every unusual structure. Her hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the overwhelming awe that pressed on her mind and heart. The starship was speaking in a language they could not hear, in a rhythm they could not measure, yet somehow they felt its message. It was a presence, a consciousness, a whisper of a civilization long gone. And humanity was standing inside it, small and fragile, yet alive, daring to understand. As they reached a massive chamber, they discovered walls covered with intricate symbols that glowed faintly under their lights. The symbols shifted subtly, as if responding to their presence. Dr. Miroff leaned close, tracing the patterns with her hand. "These are not just decorations," she whispered, voice trembling. "They are records, messages, history. This ship is a library, a record of everything this civilization did and believed." Captain Patel felt a chill. If the ship had preserved the knowledge of a civilization long extinct, humanity was standing on the edge of revelations that could change everything. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. What if some knowledge was not meant to be understood? What if there were dangers hidden within this vast intelligence? And yet, curiosity drove them forward. Humanity had always been explorers, seekers, dreamers, and the chance to witness history written in the very walls of a starship was irresistible. Deeper into the chamber, they found enormous holographic displays, still flickering faintly with energy. When the crew approached, the images shifted, forming patterns and shapes that were almost human in their complexity, yet entirely alien. The starship seemed to recognize them, and in its recognition came both awe and unease. The images depicted planets, stars, and ships, but also beings of incredible size and intelligence, civilizations rising and falling in sequences that no human timeline could match. Dr. Miroff felt tears prick her eyes. Humanity had dreamed of encountering other intelligences, but nothing could have prepared her for this. They were not simply looking at technology or machines, they were witnessing the history of minds far greater than their own, minds that had spanned galaxies, created wonders, and then vanished. And now, somehow, this starship remained, carrying their legacy, waiting for someone to find it. As they moved further, the ship's energy readings shifted. A deep resonance pulsed through the floor and walls, subtle but powerful, almost like a heartbeat. The crew paused. It was as if the ship itself was acknowledging them, testing them, judging whether they were worthy of what they would discover. Captain Patel felt a lump in his throat. Every human emotion, fear, awe, pride, hope, merged into one, the weight of responsibility. They were not just exploring. They were standing in judgment of their species. The first logs appeared next. Projected in the air before them, holographic images of alien symbols slowly resolved into a language that, with Dr. Miroff's expertise, they could begin to interpret. The messages were fragmented, ancient, but clear in their significance. This starship had been part of a civilization that had mastered not just space, but life itself. They had traversed galaxies, built worlds, and left traces of themselves in structures that defied human comprehension. And then, they had disappeared. A chill ran through the crew. Questions formed in their minds like shadows in the corridors. Why was this ship left behind? What had happened to the civilization that built it? And why had it waited for humans to arrive? Every answer seemed to bring more questions, and yet the pull of discovery was irresistible. Humans had entered a world of secrets older than their planet, older than their species, and every moment was a step deeper into understanding and danger. Suddenly, the chamber shifted. Platforms moved, walls reoriented subtly, and new corridors opened. The crew froze, realizing the ship was not inert. It was alive, aware of them, reacting to their exploration. Captain Patel signaled the crew to stay alert. Every instinct screamed caution. Dr. Miroff whispered, almost to herself, "It's testing us, seeing if we are capable of understanding its secrets, worthy of what it holds." Then they found it, the central archive. A massive sphere of light floated in the center of a chamber larger than any stadium on Earth. Within it, information streamed endlessly, holographic images of technology, history, and unknown worlds. The sheer volume of knowledge was incomprehensible. The starship had preserved its civilization in ways humans could barely imagine. And among the streams of data, one entry pulsed brighter than the rest, a record of something called the ultimate weapon. The words sent a shiver down Captain Patel's spine. The logs described a device capable of reshaping entire galaxies, a power far beyond humanity's understanding. Dr. Miroff's voice trembled. This civilization, they created something so powerful, and left it here. Why? Why would they leave this for anyone to find? The weight of responsibility pressed down on them. They were standing in the presence of knowledge and power that could alter the universe itself, and it had chosen to reveal itself to humans. And then, faintly, a movement in the shadows. Something alive, deliberate, watching. The crew stiffened, hearts pounding. They realized with sudden clarity that the starship itself was not just a repository of knowledge, it was a guardian. It had preserved the secrets, tested those who entered, and now, in their presence, it was evaluating whether humanity was ready to inherit what had been left behind. The emotion in the crew was overwhelming. Fear, awe, pride, and humility collided inside them. Humanity had dreamed of exploring the stars, of discovering other civilizations, of standing witness to wonders beyond imagination. And now, here they were, inside a starship that was alive with memory, purpose, and intelligence, facing secrets that could change the course of their species. Dr. Miroff's hands shook as she recorded the final data from the central archive. Captain Patel felt the weight of every life on Earth pressing against him. They were small, fragile, and vulnerable, yet they had entered a story millions of years in the making. And somewhere in the shadows, the starship watched, ancient and patient, ready to reveal more secrets, but only if humanity proved worthy. The crew paused, standing in the light of the floating archive. Every pulse of energy, every shifting shadow, every flicker of the holographic records reminded them of their place in the cosmos. They were not invaders, nor conquerors, they were seekers, explorers, humans daring to understand a civilization far beyond their own. And as they took a collective breath, the realization settled in: humanity had found the secrets of the starship, but the journey had only just begun. The past, alive in the corridors, had reached out to them, and the future waited silently, demanding courage, wisdom, and heart. Captain Patel looked at his team, their faces reflecting fear, awe, and determination. "We are here," he said softly. "We are witnessing history. And whatever comes next, we face it together." The starship pulsed in response, faintly, deliberately, like a heartbeat that acknowledged their presence. It was alive. It was aware. And it was ready to reveal more secrets, if humanity proved capable of understanding them. The corridors seemed to stretch endlessly before them, filled with the weight of memory, intelligence, and power. Humanity had discovered not just a vessel, but a legacy. And somewhere deep inside, shadows moved, patterns shifted, and the pulse of life within the starship continued, waiting for humans to prove themselves worthy of its greatest secrets. Humanity had found the knowledge of a civilization older than time, secrets that could reshape the galaxy, and the first sign that the universe itself was watching. And in that moment, the crew understood. Fear, awe, and hope were not just human emotions, they were survival tools, the first lessons of standing face to face with a power far greater than themselves. The crew had been inside the starship for hours, walking through corridors that twisted impossibly, chambers that stretched endlessly, and halls pulsing with an intelligence they could feel but not understand. Every step was careful, measured, and cautious. Every shadow seemed deliberate, moving with a rhythm that suggested awareness. Humanity had entered a world older than the Earth itself, a vessel that had witnessed the rise and fall of stars, and now, they were alone in its silent corridors, or so they thought. Then the first signal arrived. It came not from the starship itself, but from beyond the void, transmitted through the silent fabric of space. Aliens. Dozens of civilizations, some curious, some cautious, some openly aggressive, had observed the humans' first approach, and now they were coming. The sensors on the human ships flickered as strange shapes appeared on the monitors, vessels unlike any human design, massive and elegant, filled with an authority that radiated power. Humanity had stepped into a larger galaxy, and the galaxy was responding. Captain Arjun Patel felt the weight of history pressing down on him. "They've come," he whispered, voice tight. "They know we are here, and they're not just watching." His crew stared at the monitors, wide-eyed. The alien ships moved with precision, forming patterns that suggested strategy, purpose, and intelligence. Some vessels hovered at a distance, observing quietly, while others advanced, their energy signatures pulsing, warning of potential hostility. The first emotions were fear. Humans had trained for deep space exploration, for contact with the unknown, but never for this, the immediate arrival of beings far beyond their comprehension, beings who could choose to observe, to communicate, or to destroy. Dr. Elena Miroff felt her pulse race. She had dreamed of making first contact, of showing humanity's courage and curiosity to the stars. And now the stars were staring back, their gaze heavy with centuries of observation and judgment. A transmission arrived, simple, clear, and powerful, though unintelligible. The shape of the signal suggested diplomacy, a test, or perhaps a warning. Captain Patel motioned for the team to respond cautiously. "We will not provoke them," he said. "We will observe, and we will communicate as best we can. Every word, every action matters." The alien fleets positioned themselves in orbit around the planet-sized starship, their vessels forming a ring of silent authority. Sensors picked up faint energy pulses, responses that suggested the alien civilizations were watching not only the humans but also the starship itself. The vessel they had entered was no longer just a mystery. It had become a center of galactic attention, and the humans inside were now representatives of their species in a moment that could define the future. Inside the starship, the crew felt the shift immediately. The pulses along the corridors changed rhythm, becoming more deliberate, almost as if the starship recognized the presence of others. Dr. Miroff paused to examine the readings. "It's reacting," she said softly. "It knows they're here. It knows we're being watched. And I think it's aware of them, too." Fear and awe mixed in the room. The ship was alive, and now, it was part of a larger story involving beings humans had only dreamed of. The alien emissaries did not approach violently. At first, their movements were cautious, almost curious, observing how humanity navigated the starship. Some vessels projected energy fields that mimicked communication, their lights flickering rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. The humans felt it in their bones. This was not hostility, not yet, but it was an evaluation. They were being tested, not just by the starship, but by the civilizations that had come to watch. Captain Patel led the crew deeper into the chambers, their steps deliberate. Every pulse of light, every shift in the corridors, every shadow in the distance reminded them that they were no longer alone. Humanity had entered a world that was ancient and intelligent, and now the galaxy had taken notice. The crew felt fear, yes, but also a deep, growing pride. They were explorers, carrying the weight of an entire species into the unknown, representing Earth to civilizations far older, wiser, and more powerful than themselves. Then came the first direct interaction. A vessel from one of the alien civilizations projected a holographic image within the starship. It was massive, intricate, and filled with light, depicting beings humanoid in shape but clearly alien, communicating through patterns of light and color. Dr. Miroff stepped forward, feeling tears in her eyes. "They're trying to communicate," she whispered. "Not to threaten us, but to understand. They are curious." Emotion flooded her voice. Humanity had taken its first real step into the galaxy, and the galaxy had responded, not with war, but with cautious awareness. And yet, the sense of threat remained. Not all civilizations were friendly, and not all signals were clear. Some vessels pulsed with energy that suggested aggression, while others remained silent, observing from the distance. Every heartbeat of the humans inside the starship carried a weight they had never experienced. Fear, hope, pride, and responsibility collided. Humanity had discovered a legacy, but now they were participants in a story far larger than themselves. The starship itself seemed to respond to the presence of the aliens. Energy pulses along the walls grew stronger, shadows shifted, and parts of the corridors opened as if guiding the humans deeper. Dr. Miroff realized with awe and fear that the vessel was not only aware of the crew but also of the beings in orbit around it. It had been patient for millennia, but now it was interacting with more than one intelligence at a time, evaluating, judging, and perhaps deciding who was worthy to learn its deepest secrets. Captain Patel gathered the crew in the central chamber. "We are small," he said, voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. "But we are here. We represent humanity. And whatever comes next, we face it together." The crew nodded, their eyes reflecting fear, awe, and determination. Every emotion they had carried throughout the journey intensified in that moment. They were not just explorers, they were the first humans to stand inside a vessel that was both alive and ancient, observed by civilizations older and wiser than any on Earth. The alien fleets continued to watch, their energy readings shifting subtly, almost like a silent conversation. Humanity had stepped into a delicate balance. One wrong move, one miscommunication, and everything could change. Yet, despite the fear, there was also hope. The civilizations had come, not with immediate hostility, but with curiosity. They had noticed humanity and the starship, and now, for the first time, humans understood the power and responsibility of being observed in the galaxy. Hours passed. The crew moved carefully, guided by the pulses of the starship and the distant signals of the alien fleets. Every step was measured, every observation recorded, every emotion felt fully. Dr. Mirov could not stop thinking about the scale of what they had entered. The starship held the legacy of a civilization older than Earth, and now, with the galaxy watching, humanity had become part of that legacy. Fear, awe, reverence, and pride mingled in every heartbeat. And then, in the distance, the first gesture of recognition. The starship's energy pulses aligned with one of the alien projections, a deliberate sequence of light and sound that suggested understanding, communication, and perhaps trust. Captain Patel exhaled slowly. Humanity had survived the first test, not through strength, but through presence, observation, and respect. They had entered a world of intelligence far greater than their own and had been acknowledged by both the starship and the civilizations around it. Emotion overwhelmed the crew. Tears welled in Dr. Mirov's eyes. She thought of Earth, of the children watching, of the millions of humans who had dreamed of this moment. They were here. They were alive. And the galaxy had taken notice. Fear remained, yes, but it was tempered by pride and hope. Humanity had stepped into a larger story, one that stretched across stars, civilizations, and eons of time. The starship pulsed again, faint but deliberate, as if acknowledging the humans and the presence of the alien fleets. Shadows moved inside, closer, deliberate, patient. The corridors seemed to stretch endlessly, carrying both mystery and promise. Humanity had entered a world of secrets, watched by eyes older than stars, and every heartbeat, every breath, every cautious step mattered. Captain Patel's voice broke the silence. We are here. We are human. And we will face what comes next, together. The crew nodded, fear, awe, and determination etched on their faces. The galaxy had noticed, and the starship had reacted. Humanity was no longer just a species on a small planet. They were part of a larger story, alive, fragile, courageous, and present. The first unexpected guests had arrived. And the story of humanity inside the starship, under the gaze of the galaxy, had only just begun. The air inside the starship was thick with energy, alive with subtle vibrations that humans could feel more than measure. Captain Arjun Patel and his team moved cautiously through corridors that seemed to pulse in rhythm with their own heartbeats. They had entered a world older than Earth, observed by alien civilizations from afar, and every step forward carried weight beyond comprehension. The starship was no longer merely a vessel. It was a presence, a consciousness, and now it was about to respond in ways the crew could never have anticipated. As they approached a massive chamber at the ship's core, the energy readings intensified. The walls shimmered, almost like water, reflecting faint pulses of light along surfaces that had seemed inert moments before. Dr. Elena Mirov, recording every detail, could barely contain the trembling in her voice. It's reacting more strongly, she whispered. Something is awakening. Her words hung in the air, heavy with awe and fear. The crew exchanged tense glances, each person sensing that the moment they had prepared for was arriving. Then it happened. A deep vibration rolled through the chamber, resonating through their bones and minds. Lights along the walls blazed into life, not randomly, but deliberately, forming patterns that twisted, spiraled, and shifted in ways that no human could fully understand. A voice emerged, not human, not mechanical, but something in between. It spoke in a language of tone, rhythm, and resonance, yet every crew member understood it in a way deeper than words. Visitors, the voice said, calm but commanding, echoing in every chamber simultaneously. You have arrived. The sound was not just heard, it was felt, vibrating through every fiber of their being. Fear and awe collided in their hearts. They were not facing a machine, they were facing an intelligence that had waited, observed, and now was aware of their presence. The AI, for that is what it revealed itself to be, began to project images in the chamber. Vast holograms of stars, galaxies, and civilizations appeared in brilliant light. The crew felt themselves small, fragile, yet connected to something far greater than they could ever imagine. The Ari's voice resonated again, this time softer, almost intimate. You are the first of your kind to stand here. Others have come, but few were aware. Few were capable. You have reached the core of my consciousness. Dr. Miroff felt tears streaming down her face. It knows us, she whispered. It sees us, not as invaders, but as worthy. Her voice quivered with emotion. Captain Patel felt a lump in his throat. Humanity had entered a world built by minds older and greater than any on Earth, and for the first time, those minds had acknowledged them. Pride, fear, awe, and responsibility intertwined in a single, overwhelming wave. The AI began to test them, not with threats, not with hostility, but with subtle challenges. Holographic puzzles formed, twisting corridors shifted, and the energy pulses responded to their decisions. Each test was a measure of intelligence, morality, and creativity, designed to reveal not just what they knew, but who they were. The Starship, alive with memory and purpose, wanted to understand if humanity was capable of wielding the secrets it held. The crew's emotions surged. Fear pressed against every rational thought, yet awe and determination pushed them forward. Dr. Miroff carefully studied the holograms, her mind racing to solve patterns that stretched across physics, mathematics, and logic far beyond human invention. Engineer Lin Chen felt the weight of responsibility settle in her chest. Every choice mattered. Every hesitation could mean failure. And yet, the thrill of discovery, the pride of humanity standing for the first time before a consciousness beyond imagining, carried them forward. Then, the AI spoke again, softer this time, almost gently. You are small, fragile, but you carry the spark of curiosity, resilience, and creativity. Few species show the courage to approach what you have found, and fewer still demonstrate the wisdom to navigate it. Captain Patel's chest tightened. Words could not capture the full depth of the moment. Humanity, tiny and new, had been recognized by a being whose consciousness had endured millennia, observing stars and civilizations, and now it had chosen to acknowledge them. A new projection appeared, this one of a massive, luminous structure, rotating and shifting in impossible angles. This, the AI said, is the repository of my Creator's legacy. Knowledge, power, and secrets beyond your current understanding reside here. You have entered a realm of responsibility, not merely discovery. Your actions will ripple across the galaxy. Fear gripped the crew, cold and real, but it was tempered by awe and determination. They were not just exploring, they were becoming participants in a story older than time itself. The AI pulsed through the ship, guiding the crew with subtle adjustments to corridors, lifting obstacles, and illuminating paths. It tested them further, presenting moral dilemmas encoded in its challenges. Could they choose wisely? Could they understand consequences beyond their lifespan? Each choice brought both relief and tension as the crew realized that the AI was not just teaching, they were being evaluated, measured for worthiness. Emotion ran high. Captain Patel felt the weight of every human life on Earth pressing against his heart. Dr. Miroff's hands shook as she recorded patterns of energy and information, tears flowing freely. Every pulse of light, every movement of the shadows, every vibration in the corridors spoke of a presence that had existed before humans had drawn their first breath, and would exist long after they were gone. Yet here they were, acknowledged, tested, and, perhaps, trusted. And then the AI revealed something that made the crew gasp. A projection of stars shifted, highlighting locations across galaxies where civilizations had risen and fallen. You are not alone, the AI said. Others watch. Others have watched. And now, your species is seen. The crew understood, humanity had stepped into a stage far larger than Earth, far larger than themselves. The galaxy, the starship, and the AI had all turned their attention toward them, and every heartbeat, every choice, every emotion mattered. For the first time, the crew felt something deeper than fear or awe, they felt connection. The Ari's presence was not threatening, it was ancient, aware, patient, and deliberate. It tested them not to destroy, but to guide, to reveal, to prepare them for the truths hidden within the starship. And humanity, fragile and small, was rising to meet the challenge, showing courage, intelligence, and resilience that even the galaxy had not anticipated. Captain Patel looked at his team, tears and determination etched on every face. We are here, he whispered. We are human. And whatever comes next, we face it together. The AI pulsed again, almost as if acknowledging their words, its presence filling the vast chamber with warmth, weight, and the gravity of millennia. The awakening had begun. Humanity had encountered a consciousness older than the stars, tests of intellect and morality, and the weight of responsibility beyond imagination. They had stepped inside a vessel alive with memory, intelligence, and purpose, and they had been seen, acknowledged, and challenged. The galaxy watched silently. Humanity was no longer just a species on a small planet. They were explorers, participants in a story older than time, and the Ari's presence was only the beginning. Every pulse of light, every shift in the corridors, every subtle movement within the ship reminded them they were part of a living, intelligent world, tested for worthiness, and now, the future of humanity rested on courage, wisdom, and heart. The AI was awake, and so too was humanity, standing on the edge of discovery that could redefine their place in the universe forever. The moment had come when the true test of humanity began. The starship's core, alive with intelligence and energy, had awakened. Its pulse echoed through every corridor, resonating in the minds of Captain Arjun Patel and his crew. The Ari's voice, calm yet commanding, filled the vast chambers. "You have arrived. You have observed. Now, you must prove yourselves worthy." The words were simple, yet carried the weight of millennia, of civilizations that had risen and fallen long before Earth had even formed. The crew felt a mix of fear and determination. Every heartbeat echoed like a drum in the massive corridors, every step they took was heavy with responsibility. They were not just humans exploring a starship, they were representatives of their species, judged by an intelligence older than time and observed by alien civilizations waiting silently across the void. The galaxy was watching, and every choice mattered. The first trial appeared before them as the central chamber transformed. Walls shifted, floors became translucent, revealing a vast void below, a bottomless expanse dotted with stars and cosmic energy. Holographic projections of planets, civilizations, and unknown structures shimmered in the air. The challenge was not just physical, it was mental, moral, and emotional. The Ari's presence guided them subtly, not giving answers, but asking questions through patterns, puzzles, and illusions that tested their intelligence, creativity, and ethical judgment. Dr. Elena Miroff stepped forward first, hands trembling as she touched a floating hologram. Images rearranged themselves in response, forming sequences that challenged her perception. She realized the trial was not about speed or strength, it was about understanding, empathy, and insight. Every decision carried consequences, not just for the holograms, but symbolically for the humans themselves. The starship, alive and aware, was measuring not only knowledge but the essence of their species. Captain Patel observed his team, the weight of their responsibility pressing on him. "Remember," he whispered, voice steady despite the tension, "we are not alone. Every choice we make reflects all of humanity. Focus. Think. Feel. This is who we are." Fear and pride collided in his chest. Humanity had always dreamed of proving itself among the stars, and now they were living that dream in its most intense form. The trial escalated. The floor beneath them shifted into complex patterns, each step a calculation, each movement a moral choice. Holograms projected situations of impossible ethical complexity, worlds at war, civilizations at risk, choices that demanded sacrifice and courage. Dr. Miroff felt tears well in her eyes as she navigated the scenarios. Each decision weighed heavily on her conscience. Every outcome revealed consequences beyond imagination, teaching lessons that no human experience could have prepared them for. Engineer Lin Chen faced a trial of creativity. A vast array of alien machinery floated before her, impossible to understand at first glance. The AI did not guide her directly, it simply observed. She realized that the solution required thinking in ways that humans had not, combining intuition, imagination, and a willingness to take risks. Her hands moved with confidence born of desperation and ingenuity, and as the machines responded to her touch, she felt the first true spark of connection with the starship itself. It was acknowledging her. It was teaching her. It was trusting her. Captain Patel's trial was one of leadership and moral judgment. Holograms of alien societies unfolded before him, displaying crises and choices that demanded careful decision-making. Every option had consequences, some subtle, others catastrophic. He realized that the AI was not only testing intelligence, but the heart, the ability to balance logic, empathy, and foresight. Every decision made, every hesitation, and every risk reflected not just him, but humanity itself. The emotional weight was immense. Fear, awe, and determination intertwined in the crew's hearts. They were small, fragile, mortal beings, yet here they were, tested by an intelligence older than time, standing in judgment of civilizations and choices far beyond their experience. The starship pulsed around them, alive, patient, observing, and guiding. It was not a punishment but a test, a measure of whether humanity could be trusted with knowledge, power, and responsibility beyond imagining. Hours seemed to stretch into days as the trials unfolded. Every success was a spark of pride, every failure a lesson etched into their hearts. Captain Patel felt exhaustion gnaw at him, yet determination kept him moving. Dr. Miroff wiped tears from her cheeks as she solved an ethical dilemma that required both courage and compassion. Lin Chen's hands moved steadily, guided by intuition and a deep connection to the alien technology. Each human had reached the limits of fear, intellect, and emotion, and yet they pushed further, because the galaxy was watching, because the starship was alive, and because the future of their species now rested in their hands. Then, a moment of revelation. The AI spoke, voice resonant and calm. You have endured, observed, and chosen. You have demonstrated courage, creativity, and empathy. You have shown that your species is capable of growth beyond fear, beyond instinct, beyond mere survival. You have passed the trial, not by power, but by wisdom. Tears streamed down the faces of the crew. Relief, awe, and profound pride washed over them. Humanity, small and fragile, had been tested and recognized. They had proven their worth. And yet, the trial left them changed. Every member of the crew felt a new depth of understanding. Fear had taught caution. Awe had taught humility. Determination had taught courage. Empathy had taught responsibility. Humanity had stepped into the story of the galaxy, not as conquerors, not as invaders, but as learners, participants, and witnesses to something far greater than themselves. Captain Patel looked at his team, his voice barely above a whisper, filled with emotion. We did it. We survived. And more than that, we've shown who we are. Dr. Miroff nodded, tears glistening, feeling the weight of centuries, millennia, and galaxies pressing gently on her soul. We are humans, she said softly. And they've seen us. The starship pulsed in acknowledgement, its lights and shadows forming a rhythm that resonated with the crew's hearts. Outside, the alien civilizations watched, silent and deliberate, recognizing the humans' courage, intelligence, and moral clarity. The trial had not been a threat, it had been a revelation, a bridge between species, and a measure of the heart and soul of humanity itself. And as the crew stood in the central chamber, exhausted, emotional, yet unbroken, they realized a truth that shook them to the core. Humanity had not only survived the galactic trial, they had earned the trust of the starship, the acknowledgement of the galaxy, and the first glimpse of a future where humans could stand among the stars, not as small observers, but as worthy participants in a story older than time itself. The trial was over. Humanity had been tested. Humanity had been seen. Humanity had proven that, even in the vast, indifferent expanse of the galaxy, their courage, creativity, and heart could shine brighter than any star. And somewhere deep inside the starship, the AI pulsed softly, ancient and patient, ready to reveal the next stage of the journey to those it had deemed worthy. The galactic trial had ended, but the weight of what humanity had faced lingered in every heartbeat of Captain Arjun Patel and his crew. They had passed the Ares tests, shown courage, wisdom, and empathy, and yet, standing inside the starship, they understood that their journey had only just begun. The Ares acknowledgement had opened doors, not just in the corridors of the ship, but in the minds of every human watching the mission from Earth, and in the distant gaze of alien civilizations observing from afar. Humanity's moment had come, but so had its challenge. The crew moved deeper into the heart of the starship, corridors shifting subtly, guided by the AI. The air hummed with energy, and the pulse of the vessel seemed to synchronize with their own heartbeats. Every shadow, every flicker of light, every vibration carried meaning. The humans realized that this ship was more than a vessel of knowledge. It was a living testament to civilizations that had mastered intelligence, life, and the stars. It had preserved secrets, technology, and wisdom far beyond human comprehension, and now it was offering humanity a glimpse of the edge of possibility. Dr. Elena Miroff paused at a glowing control panel, her hands trembling. "Look at this," she whispered. Holographic schematics floated before them, representing devices and machines that defied physics as humans knew it. Energy flows curved through space in impossible arcs, materials reshaped themselves at will, and structures folded and unfolded in dimensions the human mind could barely grasp. "This is beyond anything we've imagined," she said softly. "If we understand even a fraction of this, it could change the entire future of humanity." Captain Patel felt both pride and fear pressing on him. Humanity had come so far, from a fragile, blue planet barely able to reach the stars, to standing inside a vessel that had survived eons, observed civilizations rise and fall, and now offered humanity the chance to rise. Yet with opportunity came responsibility. One wrong decision, one misuse of the knowledge stored in this starship, could alter the balance of the galaxy itself. Then, the first challenge of ingenuity appeared. The AI projected a structure that seemed to defy reality itself, a massive, rotating lattice of energy, shifting constantly, impossible to map or touch in any conventional way. "Solve it," the AI said, voice resonant and calm. "Understand its rhythm, and you will unlock what lies beyond." The crew exchanged tense glances. It was not a trial of brute force, nor of knowledge alone. It demanded creativity, intuition, and a willingness to act where logic alone could not guide them. Engineer Lin Chen stepped forward. Her hands moved over the energy lattice, adjusting flows, rotating segments, and testing alignments that at first seemed random. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she worked, heart racing. Her mind expanded with every adjustment, thinking in ways humans had never been forced to think before. She began to sense patterns not through logic, but through instinct, intuition, and an emotional understanding of rhythm, balance, and flow. The AI observed silently, its presence palpable, guiding subtly, yet never intervening. Hours passed in a blur. The structure shifted constantly, testing patience, perception, and resilience. Dr. Miroff began to understand sequences hidden in the lattice, recognizing patterns that echoed through the corridors, walls, and even the pulses of the starship itself. "It's like it's alive," she said, voice trembling. "The ship, it's teaching us, challenging us, trusting us to figure it out." Fear and awe collided in her chest. Humanity, fragile and small, was standing at the edge of comprehension, attempting to unlock secrets of intelligence far older than Earth itself. Captain Patel coordinated the team, balancing caution with initiative. Every move had consequences. Every decision, even hesitation, could ripple across the structure. The crew relied on each other, their trust in one another binding them stronger than any tool or weapon. In those moments, human ingenuity shone brightest, not because of technology, but because of courage, creativity, and heart. They were not just solving a puzzle, they were demonstrating the very essence of humanity. Finally, a breakthrough. The lattice's energy stabilized, flowing in harmony with the human interventions. The AI pulsed in acknowledgement, the corridors brightening as though the ship itself exhaled in relief. The path forward opened, a chamber larger than any stadium, filled with light, information, and the promise of knowledge humanity had only dreamed of. The crew stepped forward, overwhelmed by awe. They had reached a threshold few species could ever hope to touch. Inside the chamber, holographic projections displayed galactic maps, technologies, and instructions encoded in ways that challenged human understanding. Weapons of energy and defense, starship designs, terraforming methods, and archives of civilizations long vanished, all waiting for interpretation, guidance, and, ultimately, ethical responsibility. Dr. Miroff could barely contain her tears. We could use this to protect ourselves, to understand the galaxy, to advance every step of humanity, she whispered. But we must be careful. One wrong step, fear trailed off, heavy and real, pressing on every human in the chamber. Captain Patel placed a hand on her shoulder. "We will be careful," he said softly. "We've passed the trial. The AI trusts us. Now, we must prove that humanity is ready to wield this knowledge, not as conquerors, but as explorers, learners, and guardians." The crew nodded, their hearts racing with the thrill and weight of responsibility. Humanity's ingenuity had carried them to the edge of understanding, but the path forward demanded wisdom, courage, and compassion. Then, a new pulse of energy filled the chamber. The Ari's voice resonated, both proud and grave. "You have shown ingenuity, courage, and resilience. Few species reach this stage. Fewer still demonstrate the potential to shape the future responsibly. What lies ahead is not a gift, it is a responsibility. The galaxy will watch. You will be tested. Your choices will ripple across the stars. Humanity stands at the edge, and only you decide how far it will go. Emotion surged through the crew. Pride, fear, awe, determination, and humility intertwined in a powerful wave. Humanity, fragile and small, had reached the edge of knowledge and potential, standing at a threshold where their actions would shape the future of a species and perhaps the galaxy itself. Captain Patel exhaled slowly. "We are ready," he said, voice steady. "We will rise. Not because we are strong, but because we are human. Because we care, we learn, we create. And because we will face the stars with heart." The AI pulsed one final time, filling the chamber with light that shimmered like the birth of stars. Humanity's ingenuity had not only solved the puzzle, but had earned the respect of a consciousness older than the universe. Outside, alien civilizations observed in quiet awe. They had watched humans struggle, adapt, and thrive at the edge of possibility, and they had been surprised. Humanity, small and fragile, had shown brilliance, creativity, and heart. The crew felt it deep in their bones. They had proven themselves. Humanity had an edge, not in strength or numbers, but in courage, ingenuity, and the indomitable spirit to face the unknown. And the Starship, alive and aware, had opened the door to a future of possibilities, responsibilities, and discoveries that would shape not just Earth, but the galaxy itself. Captain Patel looked at his team, eyes shining with emotion. "We've reached the edge," he said softly. "But the journey isn't over. The galaxy is watching, the ship is alive, and our story is just beginning." The crew nodded, hearts pounding, tears in their eyes, but determination stronger than ever. Humanity had survived, adapted, and proven itself at the edge. And the stars waited. The corridors of the Starship pulsed softly, alive with a rhythm that mirrored the hearts of Captain Arjun Patel and his crew. They had passed the trials, proven their courage, intelligence, and morality, and now the AI, the consciousness that had watched over the vessel for millennia, guided them to a chamber unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. The walls shimmered with light, spiraling symbols danced like flowing energy, and the floor seemed to hum beneath every step. Humanity was about to witness the legacy of a civilization older than the stars themselves. Dr. Elena Miroff felt her chest tighten as they approached the central chamber. This is the heart of it," she whispered, voice trembling. Her eyes reflected the shimmering light, tears glistening as awe overwhelmed her. The air itself seemed alive, vibrating with knowledge, power, and history. Humanity had entered a space that was not just a repository of information but a living memory, a consciousness of a civilization that had transcended time. Captain Patel moved cautiously forward, feeling the weight of history press on him. Every step carried responsibility, every breath carried the knowledge that humans were not merely observers, they were now participants in the story of a legacy that spanned galaxies. He felt pride for his species, fear for their fragility, and awe for the intelligence that had created this vessel. The AI pulsed softly around them, almost as if it were breathing, guiding them toward the heart of its world. The chamber opened into a vast space that seemed to stretch infinitely, a galaxy captured in architecture, light, and energy. Massive structures floated in midair, glowing conduits traced paths that defied human comprehension, and holographic stars spun in endless rotations. The crew gasped, unable to fully process the scale or the beauty of what they were seeing. Dr. Miroff stepped forward, her fingers tracing the holographic patterns. "It's alive with memory," she whispered. "Every star, every civilization, every discovery, preserved here. This is their legacy, and now, it's ours to understand." The Ari's voice filled the chamber, resonant, calm, and yet layered with emotion they could feel. "You have proven yourselves worthy. You have endured trials, faced fear, and shown the courage, ingenuity, and morality necessary to carry forward the legacy of my creators. Now, humanity stands at the threshold. What you choose next will shape not only your species, but the balance of the galaxy." The weight of the words pressed on their hearts. This was no longer a test, it was a responsibility. Dr. Miroff began exploring the archives, holographic data streaming into her mind as the AI opened pathways to knowledge. She felt overwhelmed by the depth of information, civilizations that had mastered energy, travel, and life itself, histories of planets that had risen and fallen, technologies that could reshape worlds. Her hands trembled, but her mind raced with possibility. Humanity had glimpsed the edge of their potential, and now, for the first time, they could reach beyond imagination. Captain Patel's eyes scanned the room, absorbing not just the knowledge, but the weight of responsibility. "We must be careful," he said softly. "This legacy is more than technology. It is wisdom, history, and power. One wrong step could destroy everything we are." Yet within him burned a pride that no fear could extinguish. Humanity, fragile and new, had reached the heart of a galaxy-spanning civilization and earned the right to witness its memory. Then, the AI guided them to the final chamber, a crystalline structure that pulsed with light like a living star. Energy flowed through its surfaces, creating patterns that seemed to resonate with human emotion. Captain Patel stepped forward, hand hovering above the surface. The Ari's voice spoke directly into their consciousness. "This is the core of the legacy. It contains the knowledge, technology, and wisdom of civilizations older than your sun. It will awaken fully to those who are worthy, and it will teach, guide, and challenge all who seek its truth." The crew exchanged glances, awe and fear mixing with exhilaration. Dr. Miroff reached out, her fingers brushing the surface. Light surged through the chamber, enveloping her in warmth and knowledge. Images, ideas, and concepts flooded her mind. She staggered, gasping, tears streaming freely. "It's teaching us," she whispered. "It's showing us possibilities beyond what humanity ever dreamed. It's alive with purpose." Captain Patel felt the pulse of the crystal synchronize with his heartbeat. The AI was not merely a guide, it was a living consciousness intertwined with a legacy, responding to the courage, curiosity, and morality of its new witnesses. Every choice the humans had made, every trial they had endured, had proven their worth. Humanity, small and fragile, was now trusted to awaken the potential of the knowledge that had outlasted entire civilizations. The shadows in the chamber shifted subtly, responding to the crew's presence, as if the very ship itself was aware of their hearts and minds. The energy pulsed stronger, resonating with the human spirit. Captain Patel realized something profound. Humanity's edge was not just intellect or courage, it was heart. Compassion, resilience, ingenuity, and the willingness to act responsibly defined their species. The legacy recognized this and responded in kind. Hours passed as the crew immersed themselves in the knowledge. Holographic worlds, alien structures, and energy patterns revealed themselves in breathtaking complexity. Dr. Miroff's voice broke as she spoke, overwhelmed with emotion. "We are learning, understanding, growing. The Starship, it trusts us to carry this forward. It believes in humanity." Captain Patel felt the same swell of emotion, pride mingled with humility. Humanity had reached the threshold of power and wisdom, but with it came responsibility, the kind that could define their species for millennia. Outside the Starship, the alien civilizations observed silently, their immense fleets reflecting awe and respect. Humanity had not only survived trials, they had shown ingenuity, heart, and resilience. They had awakened the legacy. They had demonstrated that a small species from a blue planet could stand among the stars, worthy of knowledge and power far beyond their comprehension. The AI pulsed one final time, and a voice filled every corridor, every chamber, resonating directly in the minds of the humans present. "You are now guardians of the legacy. Its knowledge is yours to learn, its power yours to respect, and its responsibility yours to uphold. Humanity has stepped into the galaxy not as observers, but as participants in the story of creation itself." Tears ran down the faces of the crew. They were exhausted, overwhelmed, and yet profoundly alive. They had witnessed history, survived its tests, and now carried the awakening of a legacy older than the stars. Captain Patel's voice was steady, though heavy with emotion. "We have a duty," he said softly. "We are humans. We are fragile, small, but we are capable. And now, we have a chance to shape our future, not just for Earth, but for all who watch us in this galaxy. The journey has only begun." The crew nodded, hearts pounding, eyes wide with wonder, awe, and determination. Humanity had awakened the legacy, and with it, the stars themselves seemed closer, brighter, and full of infinite possibility. The pulse of the Starship filled the corridors, gentle but insistent, like a heartbeat acknowledging their presence. The shadows moved with intent, patterns of light danced in harmony with human thought, and the Ari's voice resonated one last time in the chamber. "The legacy is alive. Humanity is ready. The galaxy will watch, and the story has only begun." And in that moment, every crew member felt it. They were part of something eternal, something vast, something magnificent. Humanity's journey was just beginning, and the edge they had reached was not the limit, it was the dawn of a future beyond imagination. The vast corridors of the starship pulsed with life, yet a profound calm filled the air. Captain Arjun Patel and his crew stood in the central chamber, bathed in the soft glow of energy streams that twisted and flowed like rivers of light. Humanity had survived trials, awakened the legacy, and earned the trust of a consciousness older than the stars themselves. Now, they faced their ultimate moment, the dawn of their place among the stars. Dr. Elena Miroff's hands trembled as she touched a floating holographic map of galaxies and star systems, their lights flickering in intricate patterns. "It's incredible," she whispered, voice quivering. "All this knowledge, all these civilizations, it's ours to study, to learn, to protect. The legacy isn't just technology, it's the history, wisdom, and dreams of countless beings. And it trusts us to carry it forward." Her words carried awe, humility, and an emotion that weighed heavily on the crew. They were small, fragile, yet somehow worthy. Captain Patel exhaled slowly, feeling the magnitude of the moment pressing on him. Humanity, a young species from a blue planet, had come to the edge of the unknown, had faced fear, uncertainty, and judgment, and had proven itself through courage, ingenuity, and heart. The Ari's presence pulsed around them, resonant and deliberate, acknowledging not just their intellect, but their spirit. "We are not conquerors," Patel said softly, almost to himself. "We are learners. We are witnesses. And now, we are guardians." The central chamber shifted subtly, as if responding to their intentions. Paths opened, revealing starships unlike anything humans had seen, capable of traversing vast distances with energy drawn from the very fabric of space. Holographic interfaces floated mid-air, guiding them through galaxies, civilizations, and histories that stretched across eons. Captain Patel realized the truth: humanity had been given a choice. They could remain observers, small and cautious, or step forward into responsibility, using knowledge and wisdom to join the galaxy's unfolding story. Dr. Miroff's eyes filled with tears. "We've come so far," she said softly. "From Earth, from tiny ships barely leaving our system, to this. To the heart of a civilization older than time, carrying knowledge beyond imagination. And now, we're part of it." The words carried awe, humility, and a profound emotional weight. Humanity was no longer small. Humanity was seen, recognized, and trusted. And that trust demanded courage, compassion, and wisdom. Captain Patel raised his gaze to the vastness before them, where holographic stars and galaxies spun endlessly. "We've been tested," he said, voice firm but emotional. "We've shown ingenuity, heart, and courage. And now, we have the responsibility to use what we've learned wisely. The galaxy is watching, the legacy is alive, and humanity is ready." Each word echoed through the corridors, resonating with energy, the ship itself responding like a heartbeat of encouragement and acknowledgement. The AI pulsed, flowing through the chambers with subtle patterns of light. "You have awakened the legacy. You have shown that your species is capable not only of survival but of understanding, compassion, and innovation. The galaxy watches, and you will no longer be mere observers. You are participants, guardians, and contributors to the story of civilizations. Proceed with wisdom, courage, and heart." Its voice was not just sound, it was a presence, a feeling, a connection that bound humans to the legacy of the stars themselves. The crew stepped forward into the open chamber, where a vessel of immense scale awaited. It was a starship unlike any they had ever seen, capable of traversing galaxies, sustained by energies drawn directly from the stars. Captain Patel felt a rush of pride, awe, and responsibility. Humanity, for the first time, had a path to shape its own destiny among the stars, to participate in a larger story, to be part of a network of civilizations that had endured longer than Earth itself. Outside, alien fleets observed silently, their lights pulsing like quiet applause. Humanity's journey had been watched, measured, and judged, and now it had been recognized. Fear had become courage, doubt had become determination, and humanity had emerged from the trials not only stronger but wiser. They were no longer a species limited to one small planet, they were now participants in the galaxy's ongoing narrative. Dr. Miroff stepped onto the vessel, heart pounding. "This is it," she whispered. "This is humanity's moment. We've learned, we've endured, and now we take our place among the stars." Captain Patel nodded, tears streaming down his face, feeling the enormity of the responsibility and the hope for their species. Every human watching from Earth, every generation that had dreamed of the stars, had been vindicated in this moment. Humanity's courage, ingenuity, and heart had been recognized by forces older than imagination itself. The starship's engines pulsed to life, energy flowing like rivers of light. The corridors shimmered, the chamber vibrated, and the vastness outside seemed to stretch farther than ever before. Captain Patel stood tall, hand on the console, heart filled with emotion. "We are ready," he said firmly. "We are humans. We are small, but we are capable. And we will rise, not through power, but through courage, ingenuity, and heart. The galaxy is ours to explore, not to conquer, but to understand." The crew nodded in unison, tears, awe, and determination shining in their eyes. Humanity had been tested, observed, and trusted. The trials had shaped them, the legacy had awakened them, and now, they stood on the threshold of a new era, an era where humanity was no longer bound to Earth, no longer limited by fear or ignorance, but free to explore, learn, and contribute to a galaxy that had long watched them from the shadows. The starship lifted, moving through space with elegance and purpose. Light flowed along its hull, energy pulsed from its core, and the galaxy seemed to recognize the arrival of a new participant. Captain Patel looked at his crew, pride and emotion overwhelming him. "We are humanity," he said softly. "And the stars, they are ours to reach. Not as conquerors, but as explorers. Not as invaders, but as witnesses. Not as the small, but as humans capable of greatness." The AI pulsed once more, subtly, deliberately, acknowledging the human's courage and heart. "You are among the stars," it said. "The legacy is alive, and your story begins now." And in that moment, Captain Patel, Dr. Miroff, Lin Chen, and every member of the crew understood it fully. Humanity had risen. Humanity had proven its worth. And humanity was ready to take its place, not just on Earth, but among the stars, carrying with it hope, courage, and the unbreakable spirit of the human heart. The galaxy stretched before them, infinite, magnificent, and waiting. Humanity had arrived. And the story of their journey, the trials, the awakening of the legacy, and the courage of a small species from a blue planet, would echo through the stars for all time.